Hey folks, so I wanted to take some time and record me going over a sample of an ethnographic journal that I created as a demo. And I will give you access to it so that way you can take a look at it. But I just wanted to show you what an ethnographic journal could look like. There is no right or wrong way to do this because it's essentially just a diary, right? It's essentially just a journal where you're documenting your research. But I wanted to show you like what could some of these entries look like. In particular with this assignment, I'm not being too prescriptive or strict about the way that you choose to format it, as long as it has a clear organization and it makes sense. So yeah, let's get into it. So a lot of you will sometimes choose to have like multiple document tabs. That's okay too. I decided to keep it all in one running document from start to finish. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, but just know that if you choose to do entries in different document tabs, that's okay, as long as I can tell where your entries are. But for the sake of this example, I went ahead and I started with my APA 7 cover page. I have already done a demo on how to do that, so you can go back to reference that, but I went ahead and already did my DYOP ethnographic journal with my information here, and I've got my page numbers already in play. The other thing that I've done was I inserted a table of contents, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to show you how that sort of works. The table of contents feature in Google Docs only works if you were actually using the headings functions. So if you're coming up here where it says normal text and it says styles, you have heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, so on. Nothing will show up in the table of contents if everything is normal text. So you want to make sure that if you are using a table of contents, that you're sort of distinguishing between the headings and that they make logical sense and flow. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So here I just put table of contents. I'm keeping everything Arial 11 for the most part. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to insert, come to page elements, table of contents. And now you have a couple of different choices. You can have the pages numbered right next to it. This one has dotted, like connects the title of the page, dots to the page number. But I'm going to go ahead and make it links. So that way it's linked throughout the entire thing. And that way I can skip around however I need to. So I'm going to click on this. And what you'll see here is everything that's already in my document that has different headings popped up here in my table of contents. So what I always like to do is just to keep everything, consistent. I'm going to go ahead and double space it so that way it's clear what everything is about. So that is my table of contents. If I happen to add something in my document, I can always come back to my table of contents and click this update button and it will refresh it for me and everything will be copacetic. Cool. So I am going to go to the first section that I have, which is my research questions. Now, for this class, you're only required to have one. In this sample, in this case, I'm showing a couple of different research questions. So in keeping the theme with the previous demos that I've done, we're talking about attendance policies in first-year writing classrooms. And so some questions I have here are, in the scope of a first-year writing classroom, can we truly assess performance when students are constantly surveilled through attendance policies? Are first-year writing programs successfully increasing engagement when we rely on punitive attendance measures? If the point of first-year writing classrooms is to foster community learning and collaboration, how do attendance policies reinforce that community and how do they hinder that sense of community? So these are just some working questions that I have. Again, for our project, you are only required to have one. This is just what it looks like in case you have more than one. So I'm going to scroll to my first entry. And if you notice here, this header here is much bigger than Arial 11. And that's because what I've done here is it's no longer normal text, it's a heading. And that's what allows it to come up here and create a link in my table of contents. So here I have research questions. It says heading 1. All you would do is you would just highlight it and you can select heading 1, 2, 3. You can even update the headings feature to be whatever size font you want. So for example, let's just say I wanted to keep everything, relatively within the same thing. So, but I don't want it to be Arial 11, so I'm going to make it Arial 14, just as an example. But heading 1 is set to 20. So I would come here and I would click update heading 1 to match. So then all my heading 1s would now be in 14 instead of 20. But we're not going to do all that. That's just if you want to do that. So for my first entry, I have interview questions, which is one of the options that you could have used for your ethnographic journal, one of the entry options. And so here I just have a list of questions that I created. So what has been your experience with K through 12 attendance policies? Have you ever felt that your attendance matched your ability to learn? What challenges do you think you face when it comes to writing? How has attendance and grading impacted that relationship with writing? Could you describe the perfect scenario or work conditions for you to write in? Do you ever write outside of class? If you had to write something, whether it was for a grade or not, what would it be about? And so then here I have sort of created this space for my potential interviewee to respond to those questions. And there's a lot of ways that you can conduct interviews. You can conduct them in person, you can conduct them over Zoom, or sometimes you can even do it asynchronously where you email somebody a list of questions and then they type their responses to you. That still counts as interviews. And the way that you would cite interviews in APA 7. So if I were to include, we'll do heading 3, APA 7 citation, it would be listed under personal communication. So it would be the person's name, or if they choose to remain anonymous. So in this case, I'm just going to put anonymous. You would do anonymous, personal communication, and then the date, right? And that's it. Of course, double check, make sure that your citation guidelines are up to date. I don't even think you need to capitalize personal communication. But yeah, that would be how you would document interviews. But you can always go to Purdue OWL. You can go to Purdue OWL and do APA 7 and then look for interview. And then it should tell you exactly how to document interviews for a citation. Cool. So moving along to the next one, the next entry option, which is participant observation. This one's a little tricky, and it depends on how much time you have. Obviously, the goal for our project is to be realistic. So if you are not realistically able to conduct participant observation, that's okay. It happens. But if you are, this is an example of what that might look like. So I am part of this thing called teaching circles within the writing program, where I go to other instructors' classrooms and I participate in the class, but I'm also an observer of that class and an observer of my colleague to, learn from them in all sorts of ways. So in this particular scenario, I observed a colleague's classroom about how I participated in an activity that they did about peer review, but it was also about how we can understand like assignment criteria. So I kind of just gave like a little blurb. I said what the situation was and the date, and here I made it heading 2, so that way it's not super confusing. So if this is heading 1, then this is heading 2. Again, that's just a way that you can organize it. So I kind of gave a little blurb about what the situation was, and then I just documented my observations here. This obviously came from a different document that I was working on, so I'm utilizing it for the sake of this sample. So I made sure to say that, like, I am observing my colleague, but I'm also participating in the event and observing how students are not responding to this event. So yeah, that's just one thing that you can think about when it comes to ethnographic research, that you can be the participant and also the observer at the same time. Then you have entry 3, which is field or observation notes. This is when you're not participating in the event. This is when you are purely observing for the sake of gaining knowledge. It can also be like in this particular example that I have here, where I gave the location and the date. And again, a quick little blurb where I am presenting at a symposium about my research. And then I am rewatching the video of people's reactions to the research that I've presented. And then here would be my observations below, similar to here, where I kind of gave a little blurb and then some observations. That's another way that you can do it too. But in this case here, I presented and then I went back and I observed, not me, but I observed other people's reactions and responses to my research. That would be an example of field or observation notes. Moving right along, we have archive and document analysis. So since this is about attendance policies and research, I have previously worked with attendance policies or different ways to structure attendance policies in my other classes. And so these are some student insights where I can take a look at primary research, primary sources, and try to get some sort of perspective from it. So in this case here, I have a student that, really liked the attendance social contract. Then I have a student here who really did not like the attendance social contract. And then here I give myself a little space for analysis. So again, we have heading 1 for my entry, heading 2 for each student's entry, and the analysis. Then we have the visual ethnography sections. And so I did one entry for the image and one entry for a video to show how you can incorporate this in Google Docs. So here I have a graph about the incarceration rate of inmates incarcerated under state and federal jurisdiction per 100,000 population, blah, 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 right? So I just briefly named, like, it's a graph about the incarceration rate. There's the graph in question that you can literally insert image by URL from your computer, wherever. I also offered a citation. So if I'm following along with my structure, APA 7 citation, and boom, there it is. And then here I have back to heading 2, because it's no longer just, it's a different subsection. So this is the APA citation for this image. So if I do heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, back to heading 2, because now it's a different section within the entry. And then this is where I might reflect about that entry. Similarly, if I wanted to do a video, it's kind of hard to insert or embed a video in a Google Doc. But what you can do is you can use hyperlinks. You just have to make sure the hyperlink is working. So in this, I just gave a brief descriptor about what the video is. And then I put the link here, which you see the YouTube video, it's currently active, so you know that it's working. But the thing you have to remember with hyperlinks is, I mean, how many times have you copied and pasted a hyperlink that was really long, and then when you go back, you're like, what is this? So you always want to give your link a name of some kind, so that way you know exactly what it is. And so if I am doing this.
So when I'm trying to explain transformative justice to people, I usually back away from.
So if I'm trying to use this video, for example, and I want to click on share and I want to copy this URL. You could easily do that, right? And it's fine. It's not wrong. The problem with doing this is, one, if you don't know which video it is, it's harder to know what the link is for. And it's harder to reflect about it if you don't know what it's for, especially if you walk away from your computer and all of that. The other thing to think about is accessibility. Folks who have to use screen readers whenever they are reading something rely on things like headings, but also descriptive links so that way they understand it. Because if this were a screen reader reading this link, it would literally go H T T P S colon slash slash, and that doesn't tell the person using the screen reader anything about that. So the way that we go about doing that is we want to click on the link here, click edit link. So there's our link here. And then this is the title. This is what we would title it. So I already put that, like, what is transformative justice? So you could always do like, what is transformative justice? Just like that. So I'm going to remove that. And I put YouTube link so that way I know what it is. And here I create a section for my APA 7 citation. I'm not going to create that citation now, but I'm just giving myself space to put it there if I need it. And then it would go there. And then I have the reflection about the video, insert reflection here. So this is just a way that you can go about structuring this. Again, it is not the only way that you can do this. And I want to emphasize again, I'm not really looking at how you are structuring information. What I am mostly looking for is that it's organized in some capacity, right? It doesn't have to be organized the way I would do it, but it has to have some organization that makes sense. And two, I'm looking at the content of your entry and kind of looking at your research process. That is all I'm looking for. So again, you are welcome to mimic this as much as you want, or you can go and do something completely on your own, whatever's going to make sense for you. But this is the sample of an ethnographic journal. I'm going to post this video and this sample on Canvas, and just let me know if you guys have any questions.